Everybody smiles in the same language. A smile, let your light come shining through.
Welcome to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. I'm Sandra M., coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. I interview people from all parts of the world about what happiness means to them. What are they in love with? In each episode, we'll give you a key to happiness to include in your life. And of course, we'll play a happy tune from my live Celebrate Happiness Roadshow.
A smile doesn't cost you anything.
Welcome to the second season of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And don't forget to catch up on any episodes from season 1 you might have missed. Today we're talking with Lesley S. King, who has traveled all over the world, writing for the New York Times, Audubon Magazine, United Airlines Hemisphere Magazine, and the Fromers and Dummies Guides. For 8 years, Lesley wrote and took photographs and videos for her King of the Road travel column in the New Mexico Magazine. She is the author of a number of books, including her newest, I Am Love. She also blogs about the adventure of spirituality at the Inner Adventure on her website, www.lesleysking.com, spelled Lesleysk. Welcome, Lesley, to the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow. I am so excited to talk to you about happiness. And I'm going to start with the question I always ask everybody, which is, what makes you happy? And why is it so important in your life?
Thank you, Sandra. It's wonderful to be here. Many things make me happy. My pets, I have a dog and a cat. My mate, who I live with, a wonderful man who's a woodworker. And my friends, I have really wonderful, deep friendships. Just a few, but they're very lovely. The thing that makes me most happy, I think, though, of all of them, and it kind of helps all the rest of the things make me happy, is my spiritual path. Every morning I start my day with reading spiritual works and contemplating them, and that sets my day off into just a really sweet vibration. And I try to keep that vibration going throughout my day so that all the things that bring me happiness have extra ability to do so, because I'm not expecting them to make me happy. I just am already happy inside, and so then I can just enjoy the wonderful gifts that my life has.
Interesting, very interesting. So basically you're saying that happiness is an inside job, right? We go out to the world with a sense of happiness. A lot of people depend on external things to make them happy. So could you talk about the difference between external happiness and how you perceive inside happiness?
Yes. It's such an interesting thing because, of course, we're going to want the external world to bring us joy. I mean, that's just the human condition. But what I've found through my journey is that the outer world is really more of a catalyst to keep pushing me to go inside, because the outer world is so dual. You know, it's going to, one day you're going to be really happy about, you know, for me, maybe work. My work makes me very happy as a writer. And so one day my writing will go great. And then the next day it will just be horrible and I can't write a thing, or what I write just feels really bad. And so if I spend my life like running between those poles of good, bad, or my mate. One day, he's just like the most ideal boyfriend in the world, and the next day he's doing something that hurts my heart. And so if I keep going to those things and investing in them as though they're supposed to make me happy, then I end up just with a lot of bouncing around in the world, basically. And everyone knows that feeling where you just like you're just kind of moving through your day and kind of getting knocked on your knees, and you get up and you get knocked on your knees again, and then you get up. And so what I've come to see is that outer world is really a place that has there's wonderful happiness things there, and there's also a lot of misery in the outer world, because it's by its very nature it's going to bounce between those poles. And so what I've come to see is that the more I can use the outer world as that catalyst to help me find the love and the happiness inside. And that really that's the purpose. For me, that's the purpose of the outer world, is to constantly remind me to go in and find the happiness inside. Because we are, whenever we rely heavily on something outside, then it's just going to it's sort of there to kick us in to find our true happiness, to find our true self. And for example, so I think even having happiness as a goal is a little tricky, because then we can spend our lives, which I did for the early parts of my life. I was such a happiness seeker, Sandra. I went for the job that was most in my heart, which was to be a travel writer. And I traveled all over the world, and I had fun, and I had challenges, but I was such a seeker. I was seeking happiness so hard that I honestly nearly killed myself. I ended up with health problems, and when I was much younger, I used to, try to find happiness by drinking alcohol and eating rich food and running all over the planet. And it was fun, but it was really dual. It was very fun, and then at the same time, painful. And what all those years taught me is that I kind of wore myself out seeking outward for happiness. I tried to find love in mates, and those relationships would always fail, and I would end up brokenhearted. And I tried to find it in my animals. I had a dog for 14 years who I loved so deeply that when she died, I thought I was going to die. So all of those hurts kind of helped me along to where I one day came to the realization that what I wanted most, more than the sort of excitement and of seeking happiness out in the world, was I wanted that peace and contentment that I find when I'm most quiet, sort of sitting in my room, in my chair in the morning, and I touch into that divine part that all of us have inside, that soul part of the self. And when I make that my priority instead of running all over the world trying to find happiness, then happiness just is so innate that I don't have to run all over trying to get it. I can just find it in the quiet of my own heart.
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
A happy heart, right?
Yes, a happy heart.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. I was going to ask you some questions about all your travels and how that actually affected you. However, you pointed out that it was very dual. It was very exciting. You saw a lot of things, I would imagine. Didn't it broaden your worldview also? I mean, I know that you said you were seeking happiness, and so therefore you framed it already in the concept of duality. But I'd like to just ask you, most of us don't have a chance to go to all these different places in the world, and you were writing and that sort of thing. So how did it frame your worldview, other than that it's very dual? I mean, you have your misery and you have your up times and your bad times and so forth. But did it give you a better sense of different cultures, of different ways that people approach finding happiness? Like, for instance, I went to Bhutan, and I will tell you that in Bhutan, I was just so moved by the way their culture is structured and how they see everything as a living entity, etc.
Yes, that sounds so beautiful. I would love to go to Bhutan one day because of that. And you're so right. It really, travel, I don't want to disparage travel at all, because what I did is I had traveled some with my family when I was growing up. My parents were pretty adventurous. When I got into my early 20s, my family was also it was a very alcoholic family. So everything revolved around alcohol. And it was just a very challenging upbringing. Whenever there's a lot of alcohol involved in anything, it's going to be very tough. And it was, and there was violence, and it was really hard. And so when I got into my early 20s, I had three people died in a series of 3 years. My sister died, but she was hit by a drunk driver. My stepfather, who was also an alcoholic and a pilot, he flew his helicopter and crashed and died. And then my best friend, one of my best friends, came to my house one night, and we got drunk, and he headed home, and he died on the way home. And that happened when I was about 22 years old, all three deaths in a period of 3 years. And I was so unmoored at that point in my life. I had I was raised pretty much atheist. I had no idea about any kind of God or any kind of higher power or anything. All I really knew was sort of family and alcoholism and violence. And I was, fortunately, my mother went into treatment at that time after those deaths. And I went to the treatment center where she was for a family week, and the counselor pulled me aside and confronted me about my own drinking. I was a party girl in college. I partied like crazy, as many do, but it was really affecting my life. And so I decided, he recommended that I stop drinking, and that he gave me a list of books to read. And I went out into the desert. It was in Arizona, and saw this beautiful sunset. And I sat there and I thought, I just knew I was at a crossroads. Even at that young age, I knew that I had a choice to make. And I could continue my life as I was, pretty miserable, except when I was drinking, and always blaming my family, thinking that, if they were different, I would be happy. And that counselor confronted me, and he told me that I had to make the choice. I had to better my life. And so I sat there in the desert, and I watched that sunset, and I committed to changing my life. And I did. I immediately started going to AA meetings, and I quit drinking. And it was challenging. My whole life was revolved around alcohol. And I also started attending Al-Anon meetings to learn how to have relationships with the alcoholics in my life. And what happened when I did that is my whole life changed because I suddenly was clear-headed, and I started to see my own patterns of how I dealt with people in my life and how manipulative I could be, trying to make people like me and get my way. And just, when you stop doing something that's as pervasive as drinking alcohol daily daily, I was, then suddenly everything is glaring, all of your faults and everything. And so I really had to face those things, and I really did. And that awakened in me this great adventure. I suddenly had agency, and I felt like I could do whatever I wanted. And before, I had no sense of that. And so I went to graduate school, and I studied creative writing. And when I got out, I landed a job teaching in Asia, in Korea, for an American university, because I really wanted to travel the world. So I worked in Korea for a year, and while I was there, I traveled all over Asia. I would work for 8 weeks, and then I would have 2 weeks off, and I would go to China and Borneo and Thailand and Hong Kong. And I was much of that. My parents came over and traveled with me. But some of it I just traveled on my own. I went to Borneo alone. I went to some other places on my own, and it was just really fun. And the interesting thing, you mentioned other cultures and finding happiness, and it was so fascinating because one of the things that I found in Asia at that time, and it probably isn't that way today, but a woman could be in Asia then and be completely safe. And I used to work often at night in Korea, and because I would teach night classes, and I would sometimes be walking through the middle of Seoul alone at like 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and I was completely safe. There was it was just the way that Asia had just a different view of women, and so there wasn't that violence against women that we can sometimes experience in the U.S. And so that was one thing that made me so happy, was I just felt so safe wherever I went. And today it would be very different, but back then it was so empowering. I just felt like a citizen of the universe, like I could go anywhere I wanted, I could do anything I wanted, and I would just save all my money so that I could travel. And then I continued to do that. When I returned to the U.S., I started teaching college writing at a college here in Santa Fe, and I would just save all my money and take trips to Guatemala and to South America. And my mother's, after she got sober, then she was really thriving as well. And so we traveled quite a bit together to the tropics and to just beautiful places. And then that's what sparked my desire to become a travel writer. And so I started writing just little stories here and there. And then I worked that into a full-time job. I quit teaching and became a full-time job. And it was so much fun. I tell you, being a travel writer, I worked for Frommers for almost 14 years and updated their travel guides and wrote some travel guides for them and for the Dummies guides. And so I kind of felt like my whole life was about showing people how to be happy, because I didn't write, as a writer, I had decided somewhere along the line that I didn't want to be like a hard journalist, because that's just a very tough job. I so respect journalists. And I knew that I didn't have that hard kind of confrontational personality to do that kind of work. So I chose a job where I just felt like my whole job was to help people, to guide people to where they could have fun, where they could have great food, where they could have great experiences, outdoor adventures. And so it really it was like my whole job was like as a happiness guide. That's what I felt like I was. And it was so fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
I love the idea of a happiness guide. Yes.
Yes.
And so I have another question to ask you, because I understand that you have this new book called I Am Love. And so I'd like it if you could talk a little bit about what is that about? I mean, I am love. Obviously, love is a very important aspect of happiness, as compassion, contentment, people want to be peaceful, etc., the kindness. So could you tell me a little bit more about this book, I Am Love?
Yes. So along the way, I used to write, after I quit travel writing, because as you grow older, you just have to shift your career, and I did that. And so I started writing more about my daily experiences of how to be in the world in a loving state, and do your best to spread love to the world in any interaction. And so what I realized is that in order to spread love, one has to really be love. And so in my spiritual path, I have this wonderful spiritual teacher who kind of teaches one how to go inward and find that love and send it out into the world. So I started writing essays, and that kind of transmuted into writing poetry. And so this book is a series of poems, but very accessible poems that talk about how in the smallest interactions and some larger interactions, how to embody love and do one's best to spread that love. And I'm not saying I have this wired in any way, because the book is really about my own stumbles with love and giving love, and how those stumbles help me learn more about love and help me embody love more. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, I know how to be love and here's how to do it at all. It's more like saying, oh man, I really messed up there. How can I do that better? How can I be a kinder person? And that's what the book is about. It's about when I stumble and what I learn, and when I learn something, how I move that into the world in order to be the expression of love that I most want to be.
Thank you so much for just doing that, because I think the world needs it, desperately needs it. And so I'm encouraging everybody to get this book of poetry. Is it on the Amazon?
It is. It's on Amazon, and it's the third book in a trilogy. And so all three have their own thing. The first one is called All In for Love, and it's a series of essays about, how to, again, sort of my stumbling and how I do my best to try to learn from my stumbles and then bring love into the world. And the second one is called All Is Love, because for me, I do think that even the hardest things, even the most brutal things that we see in the world are really the divine teachings for souls to learn how to embody love more. And so when I view the world, even misery is God's love, because it's helping us see what we need to see in our life so that we can live more fully and more happily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm right with you on that. So now it takes me into the next concept that I have here to ask about, is that you also have a blog, which is on your website, right? Lesley,
Yes.
S. King, Lesley spelled LesleySking, but the blog is called The Inner Adventure.
Yes.
So you started talking about that a little bit in the beginning, that we talked about happiness is an inside job and that you can't find it necessarily externally, but the external pushes you inward, if I'm saying this correctly, to explore everything is inside us that we need. So what is the inner adventure?
That's a great question. Yeah. So what I did is I realized that, based on what I told you about my early life of always seeking adventure and always looking for that happiness outside, and then being led to realize, wow, the actual adventure is inside. So when we stumble, when we get angry at someone or mess up in our lives, which we all do every day, multiple times, that is an opportunity to go inside and find that adventure inside. And that adventure is really that crux between what we do well and how we wish we could do it better. And everyone knows that. Maybe you're playing a sport and you realize you're not happy. I'm a new pickleball player, for example, and I don't play well except occasionally. And one day I was so frustrated because I wasn't playing well. And then I thought, oh, wait, what is the real point of this? I'm just trying to have fun and be happy. And so that movement from feeling bad about myself because I was a bad player to, oh my gosh, I can be a bad player and just have fun. Like, that's the adventure, moving from the shame or the feeling downtrodden into this freedom of going, I can be a bad ball player and have a great time. So that's the adventure, I think, is moving from feeling bad about something to realizing that it doesn't matter because I can create my inner state myself. And so it's not reliant on the outer state. And that is the way to always be happy, because we're always just one step away from that transformational state or that transformational viewpoint of going, hey, wow, it's not important the outcome. What's important is the journey.
The journey, yes. Absolutely. And I was thinking about Simone Biles, when she, under unbelievable pressure, etc., right, just bowed out because she said, my mind, my inner world, my whatever, however we want to express it, is just not focused enough to go in and do these wonderful routines and things that she's supposed to become the world champion, et cetera, and people were like, whoa, right? But she stopped and went inward, and then she came back and she won everything. So I am very, very pleased with so many things that you're saying. I have so many. My last question is, currently in this time, I think that we're all living, this is January of 2025, we're living in a time of extremes. Would you say that our outside world is a time of extremes right now?
Yes, definitely.
So going inward, as you have just talked about, finding your own inner space and transmuting the extremes, a lot of people are having trouble with that right now. Do you have any advice or any concepts, thoughts? Because we are talking about the inner adventure.
That example you gave of Simone Biles, it gives me chills to even think of it. Because you know what she did that it makes me want to cry. It was so beautiful. Is she took care of herself. And that's what something that I've had to do in recent times because the outer is so crazy, is I realize that even no matter how crazy the exterior world is, we all have the agency to live our highest truth. So if my truth is to be kind, it doesn't matter how unkind people are out there. I can live kindness every day in my world, and it will shine back at me. And that is, I think, the secret. That's what Simone Biles did. She said, I'm taking care of myself because I am too stressed to do whatever the whole world wants me to do. And she did. And then she came back and she slayed it. And that's what all of us can do every day. We can just take care of ourselves and live our own truth, our highest truth, and then let that outer show, let the haters hate, and those of us seeking, living happiness, can still be happy.
Join Sandra M. for her live performance of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, a toast to love and happiness in life, an uninhibited musical adventure guaranteed to awaken your happiness vibe. Celebrate with upbeat rhythms, love songs, and fun stories, some told by you in the audience. Sandra's musical guest and accompanist, Todd Lowry, sings his hopeful and happy originals. To book Sandra M. and the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow, email sandra@sandramcknight.com. Celebrate happiness with Sandra M.
That is a perfect way to conclude our wonderful interview, Lesley. You have been fantastic. I want to thank you for sharing your personal story and also showing us your adventure, your life's adventure. It is really very, very enlightening, and I want to thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? Words of any thoughts at all that you'd like to leave us with before we close?
Well, I just want to thank you. I think what your mission with this podcast is so beautiful and so impactful, that setting such a high bar for life. And I think that's what we can all do. We can set a high bar, and no, we always won't meet it, but we can live with love and we can be kind and just spread that out into the world, and then it will shine back toward us. So thank you for doing this important work, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being with us.
This is a weekly key to happiness, number 13. Plan your week to overcome feeling overwhelmed by all you have to do. Try making a prioritized basic list for the upcoming week. Blocking out time to do laundry, go grocery shopping, or tackle projects at home or work can help to quiet your mind.
Newsflash, please sign up for your copy of our Keys to Happiness at sandramcknight.com. Thank you for tuning in to Season 2 of the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast. And if you've enjoyed the conversation, please help spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. Before we go, I'd like to thank today's guest, Lesley King, for sharing her happiness story. And to share your happiness story on the Celebrate Happiness Roadshow podcast, send an email to sandra@sandramcknight.com.
Turn your smile on, you can't go wrong.